Okay, sir. It's only you and me, the conversation. I don't know why. So we'll make sure, like, if we have group, so it will be easy for me to give the contents what I want to share on the research methodology part. Um,
Okay,
so
I will create the group by today or
that
tomorrow
would be
morning.
a great help because I don't have the list of students.
Hmm.
So that's why I asked you. Okay, so before starting to today's class, let us have a small brush up on last class, and we'll get into today's class. So instead of rushing the whole modules in one shot, today I'm just going to cover very minimal thing within a practical explanation. So if I'm going to work on the, so I think you will be having a data analytics class for tools and other parts, right? For SPSS. For SPSS, what kind of tools you are learning here?
Uh, Now tools are not started, but data analytics class is half over. So maybe in a couple of weeks we will start the
So what
tools.
I'll do, whatever related to the research methodology part, what I'm theoretically stating, those part I'll show it in the practical explanation. So it would be easy if you have a data, if in your hand, it would be easy for you also to work on that part on that part. So last class we were working on the qualitative research. We were discussing about the observation focus group, and we were having a depth interview and projective techniques in that. Before getting into that, we were talking about research design and what would be the nature of the research design, how it is conceptual, in the conceptual structure, how it is conducted. And we were discussing about the split of research design, like a sample design, how the methods selection of sample is helping in terms of observation design, how come the observational conditions are happening, and statistical thing. And we were discussing about this need. The primarily we understood for the research design is like research design is helping to sail the research operation in a smooth manner with a minimal expenses. And if the research is happen in the proper way as per the research design, so the yield that yields a maximum information, and the documentation, it reduces or minimizes the bias for that. And we were discussing about the classification of research. Today also we will get into this classification of research, and we will get into in depth for the qualitative and quantitative part. What we are discussing, I cannot, like, it is not possible to show how the training is taken. This I want from the industry point of view, like how you use this tool in your thing organization, how in the what ways it is helpful in the training, that we will have it in the later part. Now I'm explaining you all completely in a research perspective, like this is what the tools were, this is what the understanding is. So descriptive and casual research we discussed, and a qualitative thing. And in a qualitative, we were talking about the sampling, purposive sampling, convenient sampling, snowball, theoretical sampling. This part, this four sampling part, we were talking for the qualitative thing. Today, we will be discussing about the quantitative also. What would be the probability sampling and non-probability sampling? Both of them will be similar, but the qualitative part and quantitative part, that is getting divided. And observation, what ways the observation helpful, and with the help of observation, it is either passive or it involves the participants as an observer. So you can observe the feelings of the participants, and employees emotions were taken, all these were discussed, and what and its advantages and disadvantages, and lot we discussed last year, sorry, last class. When we are discussing about the interview, structured interview, semi-structured interview, unstructured interview were discussed, and its objective of the semi-structured and structured is also being discussed. So based on that focus group and what are all the participants are number of counts of participants required for the interviews were discussed. So in today's class, and also we discussed about the phenomenological study, we discussed about the lived experience of the employees. In today's class is a module 5. Today's class module 5, I'm not going to rush the complete quantitative research. Okay, in the terms of quantitative research, it comprises of it is a descriptive research, survey method, research questions, how the questionnaires were framed, and how the research problems is helping, and how the scales being selected, and what are the scaling techniques, and what is the test of reliability and validity, and casual research, experimental research. So all these things comes in the quantitative research. So the first very few 3 to 4 subheadings we'll discuss today. Before that, when we talk about the quantitative research, the classification of research we studied in the first class, we discussed in the first class. We discussed in the first class in that classification by purpose is a basic fund. When the things want to be done, a research for a purpose, you can choose whether a basic research or applied research. Or when you are classified as an approach, quantitative or qualitative research. And when the classification of research is based on the times frame, whether it is taken from the particular point of time or over a period of time, then go for a cross-sectional research or longitudinal research. And then when you are having a classification by a depth of exploration, in terms of when you want to explore, then comes the exploratory research and descriptive research. And in case of discipline, in which discipline you are doing the research, then social research and science research or interdisciplinary research. So based on that, you will be selecting the research, its approach, and what would be the approach, classific approach and all we discussed in the first session. And in the classification of design, let us get deep dive into this research design, that exploratory research design and conclusive research design. When we talk about this exploratory research design, so when you want to explore something, when you want to find out the problem which is not unclear, in that time go for exploratory research. So exploratory research is ideal for gaining an initial insights and understanding an unclear and ambitious problem. Okay, exploratory research can be conducted in two ways: quantitative or qualitative, or both. It could be conducted on all the ways. So when you are going for a quantitative, that involves reviewing the existing resource. You will be reviewing based on the background of the study or based on the topic which we want to discuss. So we'll be going on to the quantitative. Whereas when you talk about the primary data research, that is a quantitative research, there you get into the field, you get the fresh data from the field. Based on the data, the analysis were performed, right? So in that case, you will if either through observation or through survey or through any kind of primary interviews, which is structured or unstructured, that helps in quantitative part. Or better thing, both quantitative and qualitative. Here in exploratory research, the combination of primary sources and secondary sources allows the researcher to form a solid foundation for the future for more detailed research. So in the conclusive research, we were talking about a descriptive research, we were talking about a casual research, cross-sectional, longitudinal. So, but we did not discuss about the purpose of conclusive research. Why the conclusive research is taken, right? We did not discuss that in the last class. Usually, when you want to test the hypothesis, go for conclusive research. Also, when you want to quantify a established relationship between the variable, for example, there is a dependent variable and there is an independent variable. So, what is the relationship between the both the variable? What would be the outcome? When you want to establish a relationship between two items, then comes the conclusive research. So we were talking about the cause and effect analysis also, right? Without an objective, without an cause effect, there is no research. So when you want to test your hypothesis or when you want to quantify it to the relationship between the variable, we are supposed to go for a conclusive research. And also here the decision makers takes an informed action by providing a concrete actionable data. When you talk about conclusive research, data talks. Here the questionnaire or through the field observation or through the structured thing, the data speaks. And in terms of, and also what would be the key features for the conclusive research? Yes, when I choose a conclusive research, I'm very much clear, like the result, what I have given is a well-defined research problem. One, and then I will be having a structured data collection with an analytics part. So whether I'm going for a descriptive part or cross sectional, longitudinal or cross sectional, that is fine. But the research problem will be well defined and the data will be in a structured form. That is what a conclusive research. So here, a conclusive research and exploratory research, I have prepared one table for that, okay? When you want to select or what purpose here, when you want to test an hypothesis and give the conclusion, conclusive, or no, I want to give a deeper insights and dwell into the idea and then I'll create my hypothesis. Then it is an exploratory research. And here exploratory research is very much flexible because it is not structured, it is an unstructured, it is conducted in the unstructured manner. But the conclusive is conducted in the structured manner, formally, and also systematically it is conducted. And conclusive research usually possible to conduct in the larger audience, irrespective of sample, how much the sample is, it is conducted with a larger audience. Whereas an exploratory is within a small audience. There is a non-representative sample. So with a small audience. And we are telling like conclusive research, there is a data, of course. Then comes a quantitative part alone and which is numerical, where exploratory research, qualitative and quantitative, or the mix of both has happened. The outcome is what? Conclusive research provides a clear recommendation for the decision making, whereas an exploratory research gives an idea for the future research. This is what the understanding when you want to write the conclusive research and the exploratory research. And based on this, we were talking about population, we were talking about the sample, we were talking about the data, how we will be collecting data, what ways we will be collecting data, what is population, from where the sample is selected. See, the entire group is considered as a population. For example, when you are when you're planning to collect a data from CBSE school in Chennai, then the total number of students counts in the CBSE school will be my population. From that, what would be subset? From that, what would be my sample? From that, I'll be selecting few sample, right? That subset is my sample. Okay, so population is referred to the entire group of individual items or event that the researcher is intended to study. So if I'm telling you like IT industry is my study, or you're telling me the group in my certain function I'm going to select, in that whole entire group is your population, and then a sample is a subset of the population selected from the actual study. Usually, the sample is in a smaller proportion. It is under a manageable limit, and that represents the population which you are collecting. Okay, so the population will be at the larger count, whereas sample will be on the small enough, and it is manageable. And when you talk about the population, it generalizes the findings to the whole group, and here it gives the data and infer conclusion for the what the population is selected. See, if you see this diagram, it will be clear. Like the population is an entire group of people or item. From this population, the sampling, that is process of selecting a group of item from the population, is my sample. So the portion is selected from the study. That is my sample. Okay. So in this study research, the population serves as the foundation from which the researcher concludes, usually by studying a representative population sample. That is very much important here. Also, in quantitative research, understanding the population and selecting an appropriate sample are a key for conducting a reliable and validity of the study. And also, proper sampling methods allows the researcher to generalize the findings, whether the large population, which is research is feasible or not, which is efficient or not, effective or not. So it helps to understand that. So sampling method is very much important when you are doing a quantitative study. And also, when we talk about the population in research, these three elements need to be addressed. That is diverse element, common features, finite versus infinite population. Okay. When we talk about the diverse element, the population can be consist of anything, irrespective of the study, such as it could be people, it could be any kind animal, or it could be a product. Okay. In that case, it becomes a diverse element. So it is not necessarily I'll be studying about the people. I will be studying about the population, or I will be studying about the employees. It's nothing like that. It could be anything you could study. In that case of selection of population is a diverse element, you can say. Or you can also say the population could be on common feature. When at what point the selection of population is considered as a common feature is feature is like it's a common traits or a feature that makes them relevant to this study. Okay, that could be any kind of common. Next thing is like finite or infinite population. So population is said to be finite, like when it is fixed. I could count the population, a number of element, that is employees in the company. Obviously, it is possible to make a count on it, right? So that comes under a finite population. When you're unable to count the population, that time that comes under infinite population. Okay, so the number of potential outcome in a random process, how it will be, how much it will be. So we cannot select it, right? So in that case, you will come under a infinite population. So based on the population, a subset will be selected that will be considered as a sample. And then we will be talking about the sample frame. So when you're talking about the quantitative research, if you know these terminologies like population, sample frame, questionnaire, scales, all these terminologies is very much important to understand the quantitative perspective of the data. Okay. So as I see, when we're talking about the sampling could be a variable. Okay. What kind of variable? How come the sampling could be a variable? It could be a subjective variable or it could be an objective variable. Okay. Usually, when a variable on a personal opinion or perceptions or the feeling, when you go for a sample of perception or a feeling, it is a subjective thing. Whereas when you measured directly the quantitative part, the numbers, that comes under the objective. Okay, a subjective is an open-ended description, usually a qualitative thing. It's like what would be the opinion, what is the attitudes you are, what we are understanding, what would be the satisfaction level of the employee, which is not quantitatively seen, right? Numerically seen. That comes under a subjective variable in the sampling. Whereas age, what would be the weight of the income of the employee, what would be the weight of a specific individual, height, hours spent, these numbers can be measured, right? So that will come under a quantitative and objective thing. Usually subjective variables are highly variable, because the variability of the individual interpretation will be there. But here it is depends objective depends upon the factual data. Here the individual feelings or thoughts, it is not taken into consideration. Okay, the same way, when you talk about the subjective thing, the survey rating scale can be used, but in an objective variable, survey question as physical instrument is used. And when we are talking about, when we are telling like it is about understanding the perception, or it is about understanding the opinion, obviously it is prone to bias. Yes, it can be influenced by the personal bias, right? Some desirable. Whereas it is less prone to bias when it comes to objective, because number comes, it is not at all a problem, like as it involves a factual measurement. And it is difficult to verify independently. And when you talk about objective variable, it is very easy to be verified, because it is helps in the direct measurement. And when we talk about the usefulness, subjective variable provides a in-depth insights into the individual's opinion and their behavior, where objective gives the factual data. So till this you all clear what would be the sampling variable? Yes. So that's what. Objective variable and subjective variable. When we talk about the objective variable, refers to the data or a characteristics that multiple individuals can be considered consistently measured or quantify and observe. For example, I had one. I took one good example which I want to show you all. Show you. These are factual and unbiased. Okay. When you do an research, and when you are able to count the, oh, no, not that example. I want to give you, I'll give you this example little later. I had one good one, which is, I don't know. Okay, when we talk about the subjective, is based on the personal feelings, opinions, or the feelings of the employees. Okay. What would be the characteristics of the sampling? See, sampling is a true representative of the population, and it is goal oriented, and it helps in the accuracy, and also economical and practical, and it is proportional, right? So when we talk about it is in a true representation of the population, a sample should be homogeneously represent the population, and it is from when it is taken from the study. So it is not biased, and it is goal oriented. A sample should orient to the research objective, and it is filtered to the survey condition. And in terms of accuracy, it is free from any bias or error. And economical and practical, the sample should such that objective research that obtained with a minimum cost and to the effort, and it is proportional. Sample should be accurate and proportional in size and reliable. Based on the sample, actually this slide should come here. Sorry, now I'm rearranging it. I'm gonna somehow it. Somehow it got misplaced. Okay. So once this, once we understood the sampling, we understood what is population, what is sample. Now comes the sampling frame. What is sampling frame? So sampling frame is a list or the data based from the element or the individual in the population. See, I have the total population. From that population, I will be selecting and so and so. From that, the sample will be selected. Okay, for example, uh, in a company, there is a population of 5,000 employees. Okay, in the 5,000 employees, I want people from production function, and also I want the people from operation. So from the production and operation, sample is drawn. So production and operation function in the overall functions of the organization. Production and operation is my sampling frame. Okay, so that's what. And then from that sampling frame, sample will be selected. So it serves as an operational representation of the population from which the researcher can actually draw a sample. The accuracy and completeness of the sampling frame are very critical because it's in ensuring that a sample is a representative of the population. So as I have told you, just consider this is a whole population, that is to whole employees from the population. From that whole total employees, I'll be selecting a particular function, those who belongs. From that sample, I'll be selecting the sampling frame. I'll be selecting the sample. So it is like how the sampling frame is selected. That here comes your objective of the study. So based on the study requirement, for example, when you are doing a research in automobile industry, so your study comprises of blue collar employees. Let's have an assumption. So from the total employees, blue collar employees will be your sampling frame because my study demands that. From the blue collar employees, my sample will be selected proportionately. There is one formula also for selection of the sampling actually. Like from the universe, total universe into, they will have one percentage divided by 100. When you do, you will get the percentage. When it comes up above 0.5, then it is accurate. That is the total number you will be selecting. For example, for 1 lakh or 2 lakhs employees, 500, 600 sample you are choosing. So 5 lakh into 600 divided by 100, like that you will be doing the popular calculation part. So you will get the outcome. If it is above 0.5 or 0.6, it is reliable. You can take, questions will not arise. I'm talking about purely, I'm telling you all in academical terms, okay? And comes the sampling techniques. This is very, very interesting and easy to understand also. Sampling techniques or methods is two types. One is probability and non-probability. When you talk about a probability, it just comes under random. Okay, it is in a random sampling. Whereas when you talk about in a non-probability sampling, it's in a non-random sampling. Okay, so based on the difference between the probability and non-probability, usually probability sampling method gives the member of population equal chance of being selected. So that is what random selected. But non-probability sampling, there is no equal chance will be given. It is non-random sampling, it is said. Okay. And also opportunity of selection, information about the entire population from where, whom you are going to select, from the available resources or known resources, that is well defined. Okay, you will know it. In non-probability sampling, the entire population is not specified and it is unknown. That's why it is non-probability sampling. Usually, when you do a conclusive research, as I told, you will have to test your hypothesis. Conclusive research is known. So to testing the hypothesis, you know, this is my target audience. From this is the people I'm going to select. So that comes the probability sampling, where in the non-probability sampling, completely exploratory. Whom I'm going to research, who will be my target audience, I don't know, right? So in that case, exploratory research will come under non-probability sampling. Okay. And also, when you talk about in a probability sampling, it is an objective in nature. It is not subjective. Okay, it is objective because you're talking about the numerical part here. Whereas when you talk about the subjective, you will be talking about quantitative and qualitative both. Okay. Here it is non-probability is a subjective in nature. And in a probability sampling, you know your audience, you know where you're going to collect data, and you know who's your target population. That way, it is very less prone to bias and sampling error. There should be very minimal sampling error. When you do in a data collection part, usually when you the error rate should be very less. Okay. But in case of non-probability sampling, though it is an arbitrarily an exploratory nature, it is more prone to bias and is sampling error. And when you go for a probability sampling, here the hypothesis is tested. And for non-probability, here the hypothesis is generated. It is not tested, it is generated. So from this sampling thing, you might have a clarity and understanding, right? When you are going to select in a sample, whether it's objective or subjective, or whether I'm going for a conclusive or exploratory, probability sampling will become or non-probability sampling will come. So quantitative research, this understanding is very much important. When you have this understanding, it is okay. We can pitch into the next thing, probability sampling. Say, okay, we were talking about the probability sampling, non-probability. So these are the types or subsets comes under a probability sampling. So it is not mandatorily when you do a research, or when it is not mandatorily you have to select all the thing. You can select any one based on the research requirement. So simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, systematic random sampling, cluster random sampling, area random sampling, multi-stage probability sampling. It is not it's not at all confusing, because by the name itself shows, when you talk about simple random sampling, randomly you will pick from your total population. You know your total population. From that, you will pick the member according to your convenience thing. Okay. That comes under random random sampling. And the advantage for having a random sampling is like, it is very easy to implement. And also, it reduces the bias. Whereas systematic sampling, selecting the nth number from the list. For example, I have 1,000 employees in my list. Okay. So I'll select every 10th employee. Every 10th employee I'll be selecting, or every 20th employee I'll be selecting. That way, systematically, I'll do the sampling thing. When you want to do like that, systematic sampling. Or you want to go for a stratified sampling. Stratified sampling is very much interesting. Okay. When you talk about a stratified sampling, there will be a group and subgroups. Okay. So from that, the divided into the population and subgroup called strata. From the strata or subgroup, sampling will be selected. For example, let's take one example, or auto industry. So my study is a stratified sampling. So I'll be selecting an equal proportion, like age, 20 to 21, this much, 20 to 25, so and so, 25 to 30, so and so. Based on that, male, female, what portion, and what would be the education qualification, what would be the functions. So how I'll be selecting the sample. So I'll divide the population into subgroups. Based on, from the subgroup, I'll be selecting the population. See, this would be clear if you see. See, simple random sampling, if you see, from the total population, randomly I'm selecting the variable. Where when systematically, for example, if I'm selecting the second person in the nth row, so I'll be selecting the second person from all the rows. Systematically, I'm following. Or stratified sampling, total group of people, there are few from the red, few in violet, few in red, green, brown, right? So if you see here, I'll be choosing sample from the each strata, each group here, 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 and here, each group that comes under stratified sampling. But when you see here, the proportion count number of the violet employee is very less, right? So the sample selection also is according to that. It's less. And also here, when you see this, the brown, there is little more number of, I'm just showing this pictorial representation because it is very easy to understand when you have these representation. Instead of giving you this theoretical thing, this will stick in your mind. So total of more. And then comes the cluster. From the group, from this cluster, I'll be selecting the sample, which cluster I'll be selecting. Okay. So this is a probability sampling. So that's what clustering sampling is what? Dividing the population into cluster and randomly selecting from the either cluster of the sample. And area is nothing but geographical area. Like I'll be selecting a sample from all over Tamil Nadu. That comes under a geographical. It is very, very useful when you have a large set of population. It is not impossible to collect the data from the whole all over India, right? That time you will have. So I'll select a population of Gurugram. So Gurugram population all will be taking. So here comes the area sampling, and also when you take a census thing, right? So sampling household in the selected neighborhood of the city, studying the house condition would be the example. And when you talk about the multi-stage sampling, that combines several sampling method in the multi-stage. In this multi-stage could be in a cluster sampling followed by the random sampling within the cluster. See, I took one cluster. From that cluster, randomly I selected my sample. So that comes under multi-stage sampling. This is a probability sampling. Okay. If you are conducting a research, which sample would you choose, sir? You would be comfortable other than simple random sampling.
Systematic sampling.
Systematic sampling. Systematic sampling. Stratified sampling looks little bit difficult because you have to take from equal proportion from all the departments. Now comes the non-probability sampling. So non-probability sampling here is like judgment sampling, convenient, quota, panel, snowball. Before getting into this table, I'll show you this. A snowball sampling. What does mean by snowball sampling? See, snowball sampling is collecting a data from the individual. For example, I'm entering into an X company. I don't know anyone from there. I know Mr. X there. So from him, I got 2 reference. Okay. And then from one reference, I took the sample. From him, I asked him to give me 3 reference. He gave me 3. And again, from this side, I asked him to give 3 reference. He gave. So likewise, the arrow goes. This is called as snowball sampling. Okay. And when you talk about the quota sampling, it's nothing but what quota you will be selecting. 3 male or 2 male, like that. The judgmental sampling is like based on my own judgment, I'll be selecting. I feel studying the weather conditions of Delhi during the month of December or January. So I'll go into selecting the people from that area in based on my own judgment. And the easiest way of selecting the sampling is than random sampling is convenience sampling. I have told you on about this also. So based on my own convenient, I'll be selecting the sampling. So when you talk about the judgmental sampling, it's very much useful when the expert knowledge is needed, allows for the target selection. Okay, because we don't know, right? Like who would be the my target employee. So when you are expert and you know what you want to take, this is useful. But it is very, very risky because the result may not be generalizable, right? Because I, based on my own judgment, I decided. But in terms of convenience, sampling is very, very simple. It's quick to implement, but it is highly biased. Quota sampling that ensure the representation of the specific subgroups, which can be more structured than the convenient, but it still can be biased, does not guarantee a random sampling within each subgroup. There is a panel sampling. Panel sampling is nothing but selecting a group of individuals who are surveyed multiple times over a period of time. Okay, so from them the data will be collected. So in that case, that provides a longitudinal research. Usually longitudinal research is what? Data is collected over a period of time, right? 2021, I reviewed the set of employees, I trained them, and then again 2025 with 4 years or 2 years period, 2024, I am just reviewing them again to collecting data, what is the progress and how they are performing. That comes under a panel sampling. So over a period of time, your data is collecting, right? So that comes in longitudinal data. The biggest disadvantage is like there would be a dropout. It's very obvious. 2021 employees may not be there in the same place or with the same company in 2025 or 2026, right? There would be a dropout of employees is very much possible. That may not be representative for the broader population. When you have a small population, that's fine. And then comes the snowball sampling. So till this population sampling frame, this clear, sir? Yes. Now comes the research problem and the research question. Usually, when you go into an undertaken a research, okay, stating a research problem is the primary first thing, because it is in a broad issues or a gap. What is your challenge that you need to seek to address? That one comes the research. What I want to find out, that's my research problem. Whereas in terms of research question, what the researcher aims to answer, both are different actually. When you see, like, for example, I want to research, let's take one answer. Let's take one random situation. As a researcher, I found a gap that total number of female employees working in the, or female, attrition of a female employee in the IT industry is more or less. I want to find out the issue. That is my problem. I'm finding out. But the research question is like, is that has really happened? If that happens, what I want, my aim is to answer. What I want to answer, what is happening, or what I want to prove. That comes my research question. Okay. Usually research question is answered with the help of hypothesis or with any kind of research question, open-ended question or close-ended question. Hypothesis part, we have to take, next class only I'm going to start the hypothesis because it's very, very important thing. So let me take a little slow. That's not an issue. And the purpose for the research problem is like to explain the large context and the significance of the research, that identifying why the research study is needed. But the research question focus on outline the researchers investigate, how I am investigating. In that case, research question is very much narrow. It should be very much narrow. It should be specific. focusing on the particular aspect of the research problem. But when you talk about the general and the wide research, outlining the outcome of the topics and issue. So it is an research question is an actionable details that guiding the empirical research process. For example, in a research problem, a small business continues to face a high turnover rate, but the factors causing this are not well understood. That's what my research problem is. Research question is, what are the primary factors contributed to the employee turnover in the small business? That's all. The question, both the thing is same, but the way of narration is different. So this is research problem and the research question. The same in the research problem. What is the role of research problem in the research or the questions in the research? When you talk about the research problem, that provides an overview of justification for the study that highlights the knowledge gap. What would be my knowledge gap? That highlights the knowledge gap. Whereas in the research questions provides the question that will be answered through the data collection and analysis, through any data. Okay, whether through qualitative or a quantitative survey, observation, or this thing. And in case of derivation, that arises from the research gap in knowledge, literature, or a real world challenge. Whereas in terms of research question, it's directly from the research problem that turning into the empirical question or tested. So the research problem is could be of descriptive or exploratory, whereas here the research question is in a descriptive and comparative. So why research problem and why research question is to understand the gap and to focus on the research to answer the gap. Okay, that's what the research question and the research gap. So we, as for the quantitative thing, after the population, what is my population sample? Once it is selected and understanding the problem research gap and research question, having all those in mind, questionnaire is framed. Questionnaire is a tool that we wish to discuss now. So you might have seen multiple questionnaires, right? Like people might have asking you to fill the questionnaire. It's a research tool. Questionnaires are research tool used to collect data in a research. So they consist of a series. There will be a consist of series of questions where the respondents need to be answered. So depending on the research objective and the types of data needed, the questionnaires can be designed in the different ways. It could be structured, it could be unstructured. Questionnaire could be a closed-ended, or it could be an open-ended question, or self-administrated question, rating scale or ranking scale, a multiple choice question. It could be of anything. When we talk about the structured questionnaire, okay, structured questionnaire are highly organized with a predefined question, with a leading to be more uniform data, whether it could be of Likert scale or it could be of some other. Where unstructured questionnaire is not feasible, it's not structured. It is an open-ended questions will be there, where employees were asked to tell. For example, if I'm giving, if I'm asking Navneet, the sir, like, oh, what would be the understanding of the class of research methodology? Rated strong with satisfactory, highly satisfactory, dissatisfactory. So I'm giving you the scale that within a structuredly I'm framing where what would be the understanding of the research methodology class? Give it in a line or statement. That way it is not structured, right? I'm giving you open-endedly. That comes under an unstructured questionnaire. Okay. Now comes the close-ended and the open-ended. Okay, when when you chosen a questionnaire, it could be anything. It could be structured, it could be unstructured, open-ended, closed. It depends on the study requirement. Again comes the objective of the study, what is needed. Based on that, it is selected. So the closed-ended questionnaire It restricted to the respondent to select it from the predefined answer. And it is usually useful for the quantitative research. Select A, B, C. Out of that, you can make a thing that is closed. For open-ended questionnaire, the respondents are free to express their feelings, thoughts, what they wish to convey in the questionnaire. And it is self-administrated questionnaire, an interviewer administrated questionnaire, where self-administrated questionnaires are completed by the respondent without any external assistance. It could be shared you through the online via Gmail or any kind of mode of social media thing or in person. So you are free to fill it by yourself and you can sit. Whereas in interview administrative questionnaire, the researcher seeks an appointment from the respondent. We will have a he will ask the question directly to the respondent, or you will have a face-to-face interview with the respondent, or through via phone, right? Telephone. Data can be collected. That comes an interviewer administrated questionnaire. So based on this, the questionnaire can be administrated. Now we were talking about what is questionnaire, how it can be administrated, but how to design a questionnaire. Two things you have to keep in mind when we are selecting a questionnaire or designing a questionnaire. A questionnaire can be adopted or adapted. That is, there is a predefined scale. From that, which suits your study. For example, when you're talking, when you want to know about the training thing, there are a lot of training scales were available in the research. From that existing training scale, you can pick those questions from that and you can ask one. I'm telling about typical research thing. Or you can frame your own question, validate it, one thing, or adopt it and adapt it and change. For example, I took few questions from the internet or from the validator scale, but all those questions were not perfectly setting my requirement. So I'll do some changes on that. Okay, that comes the adapted one. So this one is primary, we have to keep in mind. And when you're framing a question, one should be clear, like there should be any bias or leading questions. What is mean by leading questions? For example, if I'm asking you, changing changing the nature of a work in the shop floor is leading to employee turnover. Obviously, the question is relating to the work and work practices, but I'm leading the employees or to the question stating like, is it turning to the employee turnover or it is leading to the retention? I should not lead, right? So questions should not be leading one. Questions should be avoided. One. And also, when you state a questionnaire or when you frame a questionnaire, objective of the question should be clearly defined. Okay, first define the objective. What is my objective of my research? Based on the objective and the hypothesis, the question need to be fulfilled. So whatever the questionnaires I have, the question need to fulfill my objective and the hypothesis. I have told last class like for one hypothesis, 5 research question can be kept. 5 questions can be kept. So once it is done, who is my target audience? And what type of questionnaire I'm going to use? What is the format I'm going to decide? Whether I'm going to use you can use variety of scales, or I'm going to use the existing scale or a pre-tested questionnaire. Before getting into the designing types of questionnaires, I wish to show you all the existing scales from the renowned academicians and the industry persons. So that would be, there are multiple scales So I'll show you on job satisfaction scale. These are tested and validated. I'll show you. Okay, this is turnover intention scale. Mobily, I think so. It is not full. This is this scale, turnover intention scale. It is copyright scale. It is available for research papers we can use. Okay. What here is the scale says like, see, it is in a 5-point scale. Okay, there are different types of scalings. One is 5-point scaling or 7-point scaling. Here it is 5-point scale from never to always. So these are the questions he is stating, like how often have you considered leaving your job? How frequently do you scan the newspaper for an alternative job opportunities? You see here he is not uh, directly asking about it is in a turnover scale obviously, but he is not directly asking this was the reason for your leaving your job. Is this a reason for checking the opportunity for another? It's not leading employees to something. So this one, and also if you're selecting on questions from the existing scale, okay, there are for training, for a multiple scales were available. Okay, if you're selecting a scale from this existing thing, if you want to modify it, slightly you can modify and use. That is adopted. Or simply you can use it. Or you can frame your own questions according to your requirement. But those questions need to be validated and tested by factor analysis, whether all the variables falls into one head. That need to be checked, because this questionnaire is tested, validated, so it can be used for academic purpose. For industry purpose, the same thing is better when you do on a statistical part. That is well and good, right? This is one of the example I have shared with you. The one I have showed you is turnover intention scale. And here comes the organization commitment scale. And yeah, now it's visible, right? This is organizational commitment scale, a questionnaire that is developed by Maudie Strauss in 1979. He used 15 items to scale. So before that, he have done the reliability and validity for the scale. Okay. For the reliability and validity, its range is around 0.81 to 0.93. So the scales is highly reliable. So I can take up the scale. So based on this, when you're taking an existing scale, so you can also see the reliability and validity part also, how much it is. And validity also, it's been tested. And this is in a 7-point scale. Organizational commitment questionnaire. Okay. So he have given, I'm willing to put into a great deal of an effort beyond the normally expected in order to help this organization be successful. So this is one of the thing. Okay. So this is what designing the questionnaire. I told what is scaling and selection of scaling I showed you. What would be the types of research question? Research question, This should might have come here. Why slide got this slide should come there before the research question. Okay. When we talk about this, I'll address it little later because now we are not talking about the research question. This slide got jumped. So I'll go with that in the last, okay? So let me continue the questionnaire thing. So flow should not go. Different types of questionnaire, right? We were talking about the designing the questionnaire, and there are different types of questionnaires also. Okay, one is what there are when we talk about questionnaire, there is a demographic questions, Likert scale question, multiple choice question, open-ended question, ranking question, and yes or no question. Okay. So when you talk about a demographic questions, you might be very much clear, right? When you ask about employees' age, what is this, their location, their position. So what are all whatever we can ask that in the demographic that comes in demographic question, demographic thing. Usually a questionnaire will contain a demographic thing. Some may not have, but when you do an industrial research, you will get that demographic thing. And comes a Likert scale. Likert scale measures the attitudes or opinion on a scale. Okay. How my attitude and opinion is being measured. See, if you see this Likert scale, it is in a 5-point scale. Here, when you want to check the satisfaction of the employee, you can use this 5-point scale from dissatisfied to very satisfied. Like very dissatisfied, neither dissatisfied or satisfied, very satisfied. So when you want to see the frequency, never ever, or when you want to talk about the agreement, strongly agree, disagree, this thing. When you talk about the formality is different. When you want to research about the awareness, I'm very aware, I'm neither aware. This point scale we'll be selecting. And also, there is a 7-point scale, the same thing, but here the point is differs, like it is 7. When you talk about agreement, strongly disagree, somewhat disagree, neither agree or agree, somewhat agree, or strongly agree. Usually people will go for 7-point scale to get in a deeper understanding or with more diverse view, right? So in that case, they'll go here, this kind of thing. So when you are studying about the Likert scale, selecting as Likert scale, the measures attributes or opinion on the scale. What they say, based on that data, analytics will be performed, and based on the analytics, result is obtained. Okay, that's what. And multiple choice question is like, usually in the multiple choice question, we'll be having A, B, C, D, E option, right? Those kind of, those type of scale will come under a multiple choice question. And open-ended question is I have told earlier, it's open to an employee. I'll give one statement, and the statement you will give your narration what you want to say or convey. That open-ended. Here, the ranking question is like asking the participant to prioritize and rank what level it is. In that way comes a rank, and then comes a yes or no question. This is a very simple question. You like it to do it or not? Yes, no. Those kind of questions. So when you're framing on a questionnaire, by keeping in mind, like the questionnaire should be like based on the objective, it should be framed, it should have an hypothesis thing, and all these questions could be without any kind of bias or leading questions with the existing scale. What point scale I'm going to take, whether it's 5-point scale or 7-point scale, or is an yes or no question, ranking question. What my study is demanding, what I want to take, what my management is demanding. outcome from the employees, how I'm going to take. So based on that, what type of questionnaire you want to select, you will be selecting this. The same way you will be having a different for PMS, what kind of usually people our employees will get right yearly. So it differs. So I have framed my question. I selected my population. I got my data collected. Okay. Yes, fine. How I'm going to check my data? Why reliability validity is very much important. First class, when we talk about, I told you about reliability and validity, but I did not get in depth to the reliability and validity. I told the forthcoming classes only we'll be looking into those concepts. The reliability and validity is calculated in research to ensure the accuracy, consistency, and credibility of the measures and the result. Okay. So the reliability to the consistency of the measure, the test the instrument. See, I have framed the question based on the requirement. I frame my questionnaire, whether the questionnaire is valid or not. Even though I have adopted a question, predefined the question or from the scale, I made for changes. The data I collected is from the same type, it flowing in the same type or not. To check that reliability and validity is calculated. Okay, at the starting stage of the research. So to test the reliability, there are three types of reliability need to be considered. One is retest reliability. One minute. One is retest reliability, inter-rater reliability, and inter-consistency. Okay. Generally, when you ask reliability is what to check the consistency of the measure. It goes in depth actually. The reliability is measure the consistency of the result. I got the result. First one, when I take the test and retest reliability, I got the result. Again, I approach the same person to get the result. That time also he is giving me the same feedback. So I test it, I retest it, I got the same result. It is reliable. That comes under the retest reliability. Okay. When you talk about inter-rater reliability, inter-rater reliability assess the level of arrangement between the different individual. What level of arrangement? Between the different individual. And next comes what? Internal consistency. What would be the consistency? This internal consistency helps to evaluate the result across the item. Like the questionnaire, what I have framed is measuring the same in the same concept, the same content. It is measuring the same aspect. Thus comes under internal consistency. Okay. So reliability refers to consistency of the measure that could be like testing and retesting, inter-rate or inter-consistency. Okay. And when you talk about the validity of the research, how valid the instrument is prepared. Instrument here is nothing but the questionnaire. So the test, how well the test or the instrument is supposed to be measured. And also it ensures that the research finding is truly represent the phenomena between the study. This can be found out with the different types of validity part. Content validity, structure validity, criterion validity, factor validity, right? So we have discussed this earlier also. Content validity is nothing but the test fully represents the what aspect of the concept is being measured. What content I'm going to measure. Yes, that is valid. And then come the construct validity. Construct validity tests the accuracy of the measure. That is theoretical construct to whatever I took and also what is the construct that intended to measure. What is my theory? What I am measuring. that way is content validity. When you talk about a criterion validity, that evaluates how well one test is correlated with its outcome. That comes under the criterion validity. So how well one test is correlated with the outcome. And when you work on the face validity, to the extent in which the test appears in the surface or the supposed to be a subjective judgment. How? How come? What I'll do. So this is what the reliability and validity. You got the meaning of reliability validity. Now I'll show you how to perform the reliability and validity in some tools. So I have SPSS and Smart PLS. Both the things gives different thing. When you use SPL, statistical tool called SPSS, you will get a reliability on the single overall aspect. But in the Smart PLS, for separate variable you can take. Okay, this thing purely I am out of my interest, and I wish to show you how it works on the tool, right? That is also very much important. Instead of working on the theoretical part also, how it works on the instrument, how to perform it, I'll just do it for you. I'll open my tool. First, I'll go to SPSS. I have one dummy raw data is collected from the field, but so it's clear what I am telling you, sir.
Yes. So SPSS is statistical process.
Sorry. SPSS.
Its full form is
SPSS is a statistical tool from IBM. It is from IBM. It's statistical package for social science. Okay. Usually it is like this only, sir. So it is one old data of mine. So I did not show you the demographic part. I hided it intentionally. So usually the SPSS will have a data view and variable view. Okay. I'll give you the gist part alone. So here, when you loaded the question, in the data view, it will come like, it's visible, right? Yeah, in the data view, it will come like this, okay? That will have the variable. So what I did is like, AI is nothing but artificial intelligence. This is one variable, and green HRM is another variable, and employee engagement is another variable. So 3 variable here it is taken, okay? The same thing from the same data, I'll perform and show you in the another tool also. Smart PLS also I will perform and tell you. So once it is done, you have to label it how it is, and then whether it is strongly agree or disagree. So it's a 5-point scale, so that need to be given. And what measure is a nominal measure or ordinal measure, whether we have to quote it. Okay, once it is done, the data had to be coded and decoded. Usually, see, when you collect the data, it will be like strongly agree and disagree, right? So alphabetical part cannot be loaded in the data view. It should be a numerical time. So when you want to load a data in the SPSS, the numerical alphabetical thing should be converted numerical. Like as I told you, right? 5-point scales make 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 for strongly disagree, neutral, agree, and strongly agree is 1, like that. So you have to quote like that. Once it is done, I'm just giving you the gist, so I'm not explaining you all in depth how to perform. In analyze, usually there will be a scale. Here you can check your reliability of your scale. First thing when you're starting your analysis, check your reliability. And then we will be bringing all the variables. I named it earlier, so it is easy for me to bring it. And item correlation is to check the correlation between the variable, whether it is correlating or not. Item if deleted. Mean variable if it is required for my study, I will go for it. And this is what, when you give okay, you will get one thing here. If you see here, the Cornback alpha value for the 32 item is 0.9. This is highly reliable. So my scale, I'm validating my scale stating highly reliable. Here I'm not giving, usually this is enough for a normal research thing, right? I preferred this, fine. And we also do, when you prepare your own scale, when you prepare your own scale without any kind of taking from the existing scale, based on that, you need to validate it. In that time, where Cornback alpha alone is not sufficient. That time, factor analysis plays a major role. There are two types of factor analysis that need to be in statistical terms, I'm telling, okay? Confirmatory factor analysis and exploratory factor analysis. That time, conducting a factor analysis also is very much important. Okay, so here, this SPSS tool, earlier we used to do this only. Okay, now things got advanced. When you do a statistical thing, you are proving a Cornback alpha. Show me average variance extracted. Where is the content validity? Where is the convenient validity? Where is the discriminant validity? Criterion validity I want to see, right? For that, this tool is not sufficient. This tool is not giving those things. I have another tool for that. 1 minute, sir. Let's see the same database. I'll show you that. This thing I'm taking up this because I'm showing you this because it would be easy if you think about a validity or reliability part. License is expired. Yeah, license is expired. I'm unable to open it. I had the student's license. Now it got expired now. Oh my God. I'm sorry. 1 minute. I will show you my data part itself. I will show. One minute. Okay, I'll show it from my research paper. Mm. 1 minute. This is from my research paper I'm showing you. The paper is on the pandemic-induced employment trends impacting job satisfaction and retention and automobile industry perspective. This is my paper only. So here I've framed a conceptual framework for job satisfaction of employees, and the retention is my outcome. So I collected data. From that, I did this reliability statistics. Here, discriminant validity, I think it is HMT. Okay, is calculated. For HMT, there are a Fornell locker, HMT, and another one. It will come like that. For the variable, which is more than 0.5, it is acceptable, I think so. Yeah. So it will come like this. So based on that, the validity is determined. Okay. I want to show you the smart PLS part. My free license got over. I cannot show you that, so I'll try it with the student's version on the next class. Okay. Yeah. 1 minute. This is my another paper. Emerging technologies and evolving work practices impacting employee engagement, employee automobile industry perspective. Okay. Here, reliability and average variance extracted. This is derived from I did SEM, structural equational modeling, for my analytics. And for each variable, I want Conback alpha, which I showed in SPSS, statistical package for social science, SPSS. That gives me Conback alpha for all the variables together. If I want to get it separately, I can do it by myself. But here the tool itself will separate and give you with the model. Okay. So employee engagement, technology, work practices. So here it is separately, it is giving. And here comes the composite reliability. And the composite reliability, ROSC, and the average variance extracted should be more than 0.5. Okay. If this falls like this, then my data, what I collected, is reliable. Okay. So this one, here I did not perform the validity part, I did not give in this paper. Then comes the validity, it's Cornell or Fornell locker, which one is you can give. I did the other tests which is required. I did path coefficient, I did indirect effect, total effect. This is my model I bought. So I did that and give the findings and scope for the further research. So from this, you are clear about the real reliability. Stop sharing. Okay, I'm unable to share my PPT. Okay, I'm unable to share my PPT. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know what happened. My PPT, your screen sharing is passed. It is showing unable to share. So from this today's class, we were discussing about the one slide I missed it. Somehow I take it with the next class. And quantitative analysis part is not over it. Now we have to get into the quantitative part. We have came till the reliability, validity, and questionnaire framing. Then comes how the methods like survey method, how the descriptive statistics works, and all the other aspects we will continue in the next class. So till this you are clear, or you want me give any additional input, let me know. Based on that, I'll work and I'll share with you, and also prepare the group. Because I
Yes.
heard like some other also have the group. It would be better if we have group to share the content. So there will be a connection between us. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.